Welcome to our Facebook Live chat for Rewire today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Shayla Stern. I'm the editorial and content director of Next Avenue, which is a sister publication to Rewire here at Twin Cities PBS. We're doing a Rewire Live Q&A about entrepreneurship, which is part of our America's Entrepreneurs Making It Work, which is a partnership with the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Exchange, EIX, made possible by the Richard M. Schultz Family Foundation. So thanks again for joining us. Today's chat is titled Start, Scale, Sell, How to Found, Grow, and Sell a Business. And we're joined here today by Joe Keeley. He's a University of St. Thomas alum, a proven entrepreneur, and the founder of College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors. Welcome, Joe. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Would you mind introducing yourself to our audience and just describe a little bit about what College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors is?
Sure. My pleasure. So, hello out there, everybody. My name is Joe Keeley. I'm the founder of College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors. So we are a national specialty staffing franchise where we have locations across the country. And what we do, simply put, is provide nannies, sitters, and tutors that we like to say build stronger families.
Great. And I want to encourage people who are watching to participate in the conversation. We can take questions, and I will be doing some questions to begin. So, you founded College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors in 2001, and you were still a business school student then. Tell us how you originally came up with the idea for the company and just kind of basically, how does it work?
Sure. Well, like most freshmen in college, I was looking for a summer job, had to pay the bills and that sort of thing. And I answered an ad that I think only you would see in places like Minnesota or other hockey crazy places, because the ad said, looking for a hockey player to watch our two boys. So I became a nanny or a manny, a big brother, what we like to call a role model in our company, for these two boys that were 7 and 9 at the time. And from that experience, I realized through kind of the parents that I was much more than just a babysitter, more than any of that. I was chef, chauffeur, referee, coach, confidant, all of those sorts of things. And they said later on, you were really a role model for our two boys, which is, I think, one of the biggest compliments that I could have received and any of our role models could receive today. So from that experience, I got to know a lot of parents in the neighborhood. I stood out being male, as it's a fairly female-dominated industry. And then I got, of course, the other side of the equation. I had a lot of friends who were also looking for jobs, and that's kind of just simply how it started. I wasn't thinking now would be a good time to start the largest employer, the business with the largest employer of nannies across the country. It was just simply, let's connect some people, and started a real basic headhunting job.
That's fantastic. So you've obviously grown, as you just reminded us. How has the service itself changed? And I wonder too, how has the technology changed and evolved over the past 16 years that you've been around?
Well, it seems like this might date me a little bit, but I wasn't sure that I really wanted a cell phone. But I started this business and decided that was the reason why I went out to get my very first cell phone, and had a little antenna that popped up, which is kind of humorous today. So, at that point, I was connecting people personally. I was meeting with parents in their living room. I was interviewing students on campus, and then I was trying to do an algorithm to find the right match, what we call the role model match. Fast forward to today, in our College Sitters line, tagline and brand promise is you're always set for a sitter. So parents 24/7, 365 can look on their smartphone, see fully screened, trained role models, and book them anytime, anywhere. So I think there's a few things that haven't changed. Our purpose of wanting to help build stronger families, and this idea that we think role models matter, but basically everything else has.
Okay, cool. Well, actually, let's talk about that. I think that your concentration on caregivers as role models is really a differentiator for you. And I wonder why did you decide to incorporate sort of a mission driven kind of work into your business objectives?
I'd like to take credit to think that this was some big master plan and this would be a great time to start a national franchise company, and it was very, very thoughtful. But I don't think that necessarily, well, that certainly wasn't my experience, and I don't think that that's always how companies come to be. It's a little messier than that. It tends to be organic in nature. It simply starts from an idea. It started from a personal experience where I was that connection. It was that hockey connection that the boys really looked up to me, and I was able to coach them and gain the trust and respect from them, where I could then influence them in a positive way. And that was just a really powerful experience for really three groups, myself, the boys, and the family as a whole. So really taking that personal experience and wanting to replicate it is how it started. And it turns out that it's resonated in 33 states across the country, because when people ask me how's business, I said, well, people keep having kids and math is still hard. So there's a big market out there for it, which was also helpful.
That's fantastic. So what do you do to assure that you're consistently serving both the families who need childcare and the tutors and the caregivers themselves?
Yeah, well, one is not more important than the other. So we spend an equal amount of attention on making sure that you have to have a good match. Our franchise owners and their managers, this is what they do professionally each and every day. So some examples of that is we meet with families in their homes and determine what would be a good fit for them. We also personally recruit, interview, screen, train, and keep in contact with all of our role models. They're part of our team. This isn't a service where they're independent contractors. They're all employees. We meet with them on a regular basis. We solicit feedback from both groups. So while we use some really great technology, we're a people serving people business first that just happens to have some great technology to enable that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think it's a great concept. So how do you deliver on that brand promise?
Well, I think it's about having, the right people that really are, when they're looking for a part or full-time job, we want to attract the best folks, and we kind of lead with the purpose first to say, do they get excited about this idea of building stronger families? Do they really ignite around this idea of, well, I could tell you about some role models in my life? Because if you start with the people first, everything else seems to be kind of secondary. But let's say on the sitter side, to always being set for a sitter, that implies that when you open up that app, that there's actually a sitter. So what a lot of our offices are doing is making sure behind the scenes that while we have an incredibly attractive and flexible place to work, we also need to make sure there's a certain amount of sitters that are available Saturday night. Otherwise, that brand promise kind of falls down. So we're running reports. We're watching that. We're saying, do you think you could be available this Saturday? Because after all, you'll probably be done before you want to go out anyway.
Makes sense. So just to remind people who are just joining us now, we're doing a Rewire live Q&A about entrepreneurship with Joe Keeley, who is here with us. He is the founder of College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors. Joe, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are thinking about launching a business?
I would say a little bit like keeping on the family front, just like perhaps when is a right time to have a child. A business is a lot like that. There is no good time. There is no bad time. There's just this time. So I would say jump right in. And in hindsight, it might be, I wish I would have waited for that or this. But just to start dabbling in it.
All right. So people should go for it. Do you have any particular advice if the business has to do with technology?
Yeah, I would say that really think about what is the job to be done. I think we can get wrapped up a lot around all the cool features, and wouldn't it be great if it did this? Wouldn't it be great if it did that? Or if I could link to this, or it could make me a cup of coffee, or whatever the feature is that we get kind of geeked out on. And I think just really remembering that in most cases, technology is a tool. It's a tool to help make something happen, to solve a problem, to connect people, and to remember kind of in the design world, MVP. So that stands for minimum viable product. What is the basic that you can have to get out there to solve a problem, a job to be done? And then you can add features later. There'll be lots of time and money for feature adds if you actually solve a problem first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're in a really interesting position. The company was acquired pretty recently by Bright Horizons, huge corporation. So how has your role changed since the acquisition? And was acquisition a business goal of yours, or did it come about more organically?
So I guess the most notable change is I have a boss. So that happens, but it's been a really great partnership. We've been a supplier for Bright Horizons for over 8 years. We have alignment of values. I've known them for many, many years. So a lot hasn't changed, actually. I still run the company. We're still based where we were founded. Now we just have to figure out how can we utilize the market leader in center-based childcare to help accelerate and serve more families. To the last point, as an entrepreneur, it was always a goal of mine as I got deeper into this to write that last chapter. I went through the startup, the scaling, the funding, and to put a bookend on that was something that I wanted to do. I didn't go out and seek it. I focused all of my attention on adding value and growing the company. It's been said to me by a board member before that companies are bought, they're not sold. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what happened to me, and it was important as well when you get to a certain point in scale that having partners, having a different set of resources behind it is the company is not me, and I think it's important for entrepreneurs to not put themselves in the center of the solar system, but rather think it's a being itself, and what do I need to do to shepherd this and put it in its best possible position to live beyond me. And that's really what selling to Bright Horizons puts it in the best possible position to continue. And I'm thrilled to still be a part of it, but it takes, in my opinion, you need to remove yourself from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good segue, your comment about the company is not me, to a question that we have from Katie, who asks, how much of your personal funds did you have to invest to start the company?
Oh, interesting question. I'll have to think back. It was very, very little, actually. I remember one time on my new cell phone with an antenna that popped up, I called my girlfriend, now wife, and I was standing in a print store, a retail print store, and I just couldn't decide, do I get the 250 pack of business cards or the 100 pack? One was $10 more. So I think I probably put into it in the beginning, less than $1,000 for some marketing materials and startup of the business. Now, there was lots of other investment points and houses that were, had liens on them for mortgages and all kinds of things like that. But certainly not very much to get it off the ground. My first business card had the University of St. Thomas mailroom as the business address because I was in the dorms.
That's amazing. And I think it leads to kind of another question from Maribel. So from your experience, what is the benefit to starting a business young versus older? And I think I'd like to know the flip side too. Are there disadvantages? Why wait till you're older?
Well, I think the advantages of starting when one's younger is that the risk seems a lot less, actually. Mm-hmm. I think when you have real grown-up bills and perhaps kids and all of these things, is that there's a lot more to lose in opportunity cost. So it was interesting. In the spring of 2003, I was, even though I had started the business, had won some awards for running this company while in college. There's, certainly the Schultz School was a very, very big part of that at the University of St. Thomas. But to really foster and encourage entrepreneurship, but I was still scared. I was in severe danger of getting a job when I was graduating, because that's kind of the path that we often think that we should be on. So starting a company younger, I think, reduces some of the risks that are there to kind of take the plunge. If it doesn't work out, I kind of needed to pay rent and be able to have enough money for a Chipotle burrito, I suppose. But as you get older, you have a different level of overhead, I think. I think some of the disadvantages of starting something young is, and this also can be an advantage, though, depends on, is on one hand, you don't have the experience perhaps in an industry. But again, that could be an advantage as well, because you're maybe also not stuck in a certain way of thinking. So you're looking at the world through a different lens.
Right. Kind of going back to the acquisition, we have a question from Susie. How long did that process take? How long did the sale take?
Well, I like to say that we dated for 8 years before we got married. We were partners. We were a supplier for one of their corporate backup care products. But from the actual point of let's start doing this until close was 11 months.
Great. What advice do you have for business owners who hope or expect to be acquired as even they're coming up with the business plan?
Well, I think that every business should have an exit plan, whether that's closing it down, whether it's handing it to a family member, or whatever it happens to be. So start with the end in mind. What does it look like when it's done? And then work your way backwards. The two most important questions I think a leader needs to be able to answer are, where are we today and where do we want to be? I think the team will help us figure out how do we get there. But specifically around acquisitions, I would think try to put yourself, if there's a list of companies that might be suitors, ask yourself the question, well, why would they want to buy this? And really there needs to be both strategic and often financial reasons for doing so. And then ask the important questions, why wouldn't they? And then go back to this idea that if you build a really good, solid company that has some of those really good answers to those questions, you'll be in a great position.
Mm-hmm. Did you learn all the skills that you felt like you needed? I mean, you were really young from school. I'm curious kind of what was your background in learning? And there was also another question that's a good follow-up from Susie again. Was this your first and only job aside from being a Manny?
I had some odd jobs growing up, of course, whether that's the grocery station and that sort of thing in a small town in North Dakota. But yes, this was my first and only job. So, in terms of the education side, I came out graduating with a degree in entrepreneurship. I think my degree was enhanced exponentially by having an actual business, as small as it might have been, to work on and apply the concepts every single day. So I really was surprised, and pleasantly so, coming out of the University of St. Thomas, how prepared I was to dig in. And what's more is that the support network was tremendous. They opened doors for me and made introductions that I didn't even know the doors existed or that I needed to think about it. Now, with that said, there was also kind of a master's degree by fire in jumping in and running a business that is, and we all have that regardless of whether we're running our own business or not. You can study theory all you want, but when you get into the saddle, it's a whole different experience.
Absolutely. I just want to remind anybody who's joined us recently, we're doing a Rewire Live Q&A about entrepreneurship. This is part of our America's Entrepreneurs Making It Work partnership, made possible by the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Exchange, or EIX, through the Richard M. Schultz Family Foundation. So thank you to them. And thank you to our guest, Joe Keeley, who is also a University of St. Thomas alum. He just gave a nice shout out, and a proven entrepreneur and founder of College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors. And we have a few more questions, and everybody feel free to ask some more too. A question from Katie. What point did you realize you needed to grow the business or bring on another employee?
Pretty quickly, actually, when I felt like, you just can't seem to get to everything. You have a certain service level expectation, and you can only. So, and then what's more is I had a vision that I didn't want to just do this in one place. If I was, I was really attracted to building a business that could be replicated. So that's when and I actually took a lot from St. Thomas, and they had a lot of courses in franchising, and decided to go the franchise route. So once I developed a core model, how can I replicate that? And we did it less through employees, although we have lots of those, but through franchising and partnership. And then today, as a franchisor, what I'm really passionate about is entrepreneurship. And in some regards, we are a small business factory, because the business that we're in today happens to be helping people start businesses that happens to be in the nanny, sitter, tutor business. And for me, our purpose of building stronger families, there is nothing stronger, I think, than entrepreneurship outside of that core family and faith to really improve one's state, and that's the beauty of entrepreneurship.
That's great. So, as for you, it sounds like you're still very busy in helping run College Nannies, Sitters, Tutors with Bright Horizons. But kind of, what are your plans for the future? Are you cooking up any new startups or anything on your horizon?
I get asked that a lot, and they say, "What's the next thing?" And I think it was like seconds after we had closed the transaction, and I said, "Well, this is the next thing." I am very busy and engaged, and it's been certainly, people talk about the pains of an entrepreneur being acquired by and imprisoned by a public company, and while there are certain structures that one does have to work through, it to me it's a little bit more of a playground. How can I leverage and utilize this very much aligned large company to realize the next vision, and build. We think that we still have a very, very long way to go with College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors. So I'm having fun doing what I'm doing. So between that and chasing my own two kiddos around, that pretty much fills the day.
That it sounds like it probably does. So, words of wisdom from Joe Keeley. He is a proven entrepreneur, passionate entrepreneur, and founder of College Nannies, Sitters, and Tutors. Joe, thank you so much for joining our Facebook Live today for Rewire. And I want to encourage everybody else who's watching to visit rewire.org for more content, and to subscribe to Rewire content by clicking on the sign up button on our Facebook page. And Joe, thank you again.
Thank you.